Well, hello, and it's good to be able to share with you tonight. For those who don't know us, we're Brian and Chris Clarke, and for about 35 years we were members of St Thomas Church up in Aldridge. But just over a year ago, we moved down here to Columpton in Devon, and somebody had to do it, And we now live next door to our eldest son, Steve, and his wife, Rachel, who have a very disabled child called Jessie, who needs quite a lot of support, or they do as a family. And one of the big reasons for moving here was to be alongside them. And it is a bit greener down here in Devon rather than being in the centre of, in Chuckery, in the centre of Walsall, where we lived for the previous number of years.
We've lived in a city for our entire lives, really, and so it's really nice to see the green countryside. When you walk out your door, it's really lovely. We live in Church Street, about 100 metres from the door of the wonderful St Andrew's Parish Church, and they've really welcomed us into the church family. It happened instantly. It was almost like it was meant to be. We've been involved in international mission, as most of you will know, for the past 30 years, and the last 22 years primarily in Bulgaria. Few more Eastern European countries and other places, but largely Bulgaria. And do check out our website, Krasif Aid, to actually look for more of the information. The sheer fact that we found 400 Bulgarians living in Columpton working at a local chicken factory is obviously just a coincidence.
Yes, absolutely. So what a strange year this has been for all of us. And we arrived back from our last mission trip to Bulgaria literally days before the lockdown began in March. And we, I think, had little idea just what was coming. So what's this season been like for you? What's it done for you? I'm sure all our stories will be very different. There'll be good and bad stories in this, blessings and challenges, peaks of happiness, I'm sure, and joys, but troughs of deep sadness and sorrow. And we're sure that no two stories will be quite the same. For us, like many others, life went on hold, at least in the sense of what we do for God and how we serve him when lockdown came along. Obviously, we're not at the moment going to be travelling to Bulgaria. Like most of Eastern Europe, Bulgaria is on the government's list for essential travel only. The official virus figures there are low, but probably questionable as well. Of course, Bulgaria and that part of the world is not known for their transparency over things like this.
So often our identity just gets mixed up, doesn't it, in what we do for God. We can't allow that to happen. There are many needs in this world, and God will use us, but he actually doesn't need us. Humbling thought, eh? He's the creator of the universe. Maybe none of us can truly fathom that. Maybe it's too big and too grand, but God spoke through the prophet Isaiah in Isaiah 45 verse 12 when he said, "It is I who made the earth and created mankind upon it. My own hand stretched out the heavens. I marshalled their starry hosts." Is a God of this size and magnitude able to bring us through this season? My answer and my response is a resounding yes. Without any doubt whatsoever, God can bring us through.
Maybe for some of us, that picture of God makes us feel it's rather distant. He's rather distant. Maybe you need to be reminded just how much he knows you personally. And Psalm 139 is one of our quote favourite Psalms. And I'm just going to read the first few verses, reminding you of just how much God knows you. It says, "You have searched me, Lord, and you know me. You know when I sit and when I rise. You perceive my thoughts from afar. You discern my going out and my lying down. You're familiar with all my ways. Before a word is on my tongue, you, Lord, know it completely. You hem me in, behind and before, and you lay your hand upon me. The Lord of heaven and earth lays his hand upon you.
I don't know how you feel when you listen to that psalm, but for me, it's a little bit scary, isn't it? You know, that God knows us that intimately. It's, do we really, really believe that and take that in, take that on board? Often life is so busy that we can barely take in anything about God. We rush from one thing to the other. There's always something to do. We check our devices, just get it, devices, constantly. But we want to know what the texts are coming in, the emails, the messages, who's trying to get in touch with us. Some of us play games on our phones. We engage in social media. We check who likes our posts. Or is that just me? Maybe that is just me. And at the end of the day, when we're exhausted and tired from all of this stuff that we've been doing, we sit down and watch something on the telly. And if we can't cope with the telly, we thumb through Netflix to find something.
That's on the telly.
It is on the telly, but it's another part of the telly. Yeah. And maybe pour ourselves a nice glass of well-earned red wine. Or again, maybe that is just me as well. Yeah, it's also my husband as well, not just me, may I add. At the start of lockdown, God challenged me about these things. And I listened, and I said, I'm not going to do this, Lord. I'm not going to spend lockdown thumbing through my phone. But you know what? I stopped for a while and I got sucked back in. So I'm being challenged again by God. I'm going to radically reduce my time on Facebook. I'm not going to stop it because I actually think Facebook, used properly, is a great tool. For some people, it's been the only lifeline for staying in touch with people through lockdown. Some people have been isolated and locked down on their own. I can't think of what that must be like. And Facebook can be great. But I don't want to use it the way that I've been using it. So constantly, so checking it all the while. It's so quick, you know, have a few minutes, pick up the phone, check what's happening on Facebook. So I'm coming off Facebook apart from things that will either bless people, bless God, help Bulgaria. I'm coming off it for no other reason. I don't want to be on it for any other reason. And as for games, well, you know what? I'm too weak. I am too weak. I'm even refusing to play Brian on my games at the moment because they just draw me in. I don't have the discipline to play games.
And I'm beating you at Scrabble at the moment.
Well, you are, but I'm still actually in the lead, so I'm quitting while I'm ahead.
Only just,
but I'm still ahead.
So anyway, right now, apart from the domestic issues here, right now with the limitations we all face over what we can or can't do, just how do we respond? Now, we're going to tell you a little bit about what our story's been like. Yours, no doubt, will be different, as we've said. And we recognise that our life in mission work for all these years is a little different to perhaps other people's life and work. So we do acknowledge that. I mean, you may have worked flat out since the pandemic hit. And just like Nikki, our daughter-in-law in Birmingham, she's done that just to keep her job open.
Not even a holiday for Nick.
Yeah.
Since February.
You know, some of you may be key workers and at present completely exhausted after everything that's happened, wondering just how and when this will all end. But for all of us, whatever your circumstances, it's time again to look at God, to see what God is doing and to see what God has done. Chris?
In March, we began thanking God for who he is and asking what he wanted us to do in this season. For us, it's been rather like an enforced sabbatical from our usual life, our travel and ministry. We've not taken a sabbatical in our entire times of 32 years of mission, so we didn't feel bad about it. But it's been quite an amazing time in many ways. Some of the main things that we've done: books. We've both read a lot of books. But for me, I was actually in the middle of a novel, a John Grisham novel, at the start of lockdown. And actually, I'm still in the middle of a John Grisham lockdown at this point, because I've felt absorbed by some of the amazing Christian books on the market, and some of the old books, some C.S. Lewis books. I've really spent the time soaking in God, and I'm incredibly grateful for that time.
We've also almost finished writing our own book. We wrote one a few years ago for the first 20 years of our ministry, and we've almost completed the last 10 years now. And in that book, we're also going to share a few of the spiritual lessons we've learned along the way as well. And that's going to be available hopefully in the next few months. So keep your eyes out. Keep your eyes out for that one. And
just like when we speak live, Brian's having to correct me because I actually don't always notice the notes, and I should have said that bit, but there you go. I noticed the word book and it spiraled off my brain. We've been able to help our family next door. When Steve married Rachel with a disabled child, Jessie, severely disabled, deaf, partially sighted, autistic. At the age of 10 now, he's still in nappies. 6 months of caring for Jessie with no school and no care supply workers has been a tough time. And we are grateful that we've been around here to help. Actually, Steve's comment to me recently was, "Mum and Dad, you have been the most amazing grandparents to Jessie." And we're just grateful that we've had the privilege of being able to do that.
We've also been able to be long-distance grandparents to our to Ronnie and Jackson up in Birmingham with our other son Michael and his wife Nikki. That's been a great experience in some ways, and Zoom, of course, has played a very important role in that. Both my sons are very good cooks, and I've always cooked a little bit.
The challenge has been on.
Oh, absolutely. But each week, Mike and I have had an online cooking session together, and he's been teaching me how to actually cook from recipes. And
it's an absolute lie. You can't teach an old dog new tricks.
Absolutely.
But I do wonder why I've had to wait 45 years for what has emerged.
So we've had a lovely time of cooking together online, and then the four of us sitting down to eat together, screen to screen. Which has worked. It's been good. And Chris, of course, with the grandchildren, she right at the start of lockdown said, "Look, every day I'm happy to sit down and read a chapter or two of a book each day to the two boys. They're 8 and 5, aren't they? These at the moment, and they really enjoyed that. Chris started off with a few Enid Blyton stories, which actually are pretty politically
incorrect
these days in some ways. But she then moved on to a little bit more spiritual and some of the C.S. Lewis and the Narnia stories, which have been, and the boys have lapped them up. It's been lovely.
And I also recorded some of these books for them. And Nikki said, quite amused one night, she went upstairs and thought, "I can hear Chris talking." And in one room, Jackson was listening to one book. In another room, Ronnie was listening to another one. So we've been able to be distant grandparents and actually had some precious times with them. What can we do locally? Another thing that God has really challenged us about, And I woke up one morning and most of you, if you've seen anything on Facebook, you can realise I like my little courtyard and our little the baskets at the front of the house, and I love that bit of garden, and so I've been doing that and doing the baskets at the front and wanting to bless the community. I've had notes through the door telling me people have been blessed by the flowers that I've put outside the house. But the one morning God said, "Why don't you just get up and go and weed the cobbles down to the high street?" And I thought, that's a bit of a challenge, God, in it, So, but I did. And you know what? It was precious. I had the most amazing conversations digging out the weeds in the cobbles going down to the main high street. And one person just came back past and almost ridiculed me and said what I was doing. And I just looked at him and I said, I can't change the world, but I can change Church Street.
And we have tried during this time our best to rest in God, to pray, to worship, and to trust him every single day. We want to just recommend to you, if you've not come across it, the Lectio 365 app that you can get for your phone. That's from Pete Gregg and the 24/7 prayer movement. It's just 10 minutes a day each morning. It's simple, it's excellent, and it's a great start to the day. And we've really enjoyed that and embraced it as part of this season.
But for me, at the start of lockdown, we listen to a lot of worship in our home, and I've been continually drawn back to the Matt Redman song, "The Heart of Worship," from the very, very beginning when the pandemic started in March. And I just want to read to you the words from this. When the music fades, all is stripped away, and I simply come, longing just to bring something that's of worth, that will bless your heart. I'll bring you more than a song, for a song in itself is not what you have required. You search much deeper within. Through the way things appear, you're looking into my heart. I'm coming back to the heart of worship, and it's all about you. It's all about you, Jesus. I'm sorry, Lord, for the thing I've made it, when it's all about you. It's all about you, Jesus. And God has drawn me back to that simplicity when we can't do for him some of the things that we did before. Coming back to that heart of worship and trust in Jesus alone.
So as we draw to a close, we want to listen to that song as we finish. And as we do that, let's renew our trust in God. Let's allow him to fill us afresh with his Spirit. And let's allow God to breathe peace over us.
We can come before him with whatever is going on inside us. As we said, our experiences are all different and we're different. God is able to cope with any emotion that you're experiencing at the moment. Are you feeling sad? Bring it to him. Ask him to help, to comfort you. Are you feeling lonely? Bring it to him. Ask him to help, to draw near to you. Are you full of anxiety, which many are, over the future? Bring it to him. Ask God for help. Ask him to give you his peace. And if you're already feeling peace, thank him. Thank him for it. I'm sure God wants to hear those prayers of gratitude more than we give them. Are you feeling joy? Thank him. Are you feeling hopeful? Thank him. Whatever you are going through, come before God. Talk to him. He knows what you're feeling anyway. So why don't you just start to pour it out from your heart?
Each day that Lectio app begins with a short and powerful prayer, and we close with this and pray it as we listen to this song. It says, as I enter prayer now, I pause to be still, to breathe slowly, to recenter my scattered senses upon the presence of God. Amen.
Amen.